Okay, well, thank you to Debbie and Phil for inviting me here today to talk about our experience of a very comprehensive review we did of reward and benefits for our employees in Shell in the UK. What I'm going to cover is what we set out to achieve, whether we achieved it and how we achieved it, how we used data analytics and focus groups to gather information on what's working for our employees and our business and what wasn't. And also how we avoided the overcomplication of trying to make something fit everything and have a more simple approach to reward strategy. So, a bit about Shell in the UK. I'm assuming everyone has heard of Shell. And you probably, most of you will know us from our network of thousands of retail sites across the UK. You may see our oil tankers driving up and down the motorways to deliver fuel to our service stations, but there's a whole lot more behind that. I should say, first of all, the review I'm talking about today doesn't cover service station staff. Actually, they're employed by independent retailers who are retailing under the Shell brand. This is about the 5,500 employees in the UK. And if you look here on the slide, these are all our offshore operations in the North Sea. And of course, we have a range of engineering disciplines, drillers, wells people, etc. Huge diversity of engineering talent there. Pipeline talent. We have global functions supporting the business, so accountants, HR people, IT, etc. We have all of our retail operations, both business-to-business sales and direct retail sales. We have sales staff. We have a huge trading hub in London with our trading and supply organisations. So a very diverse workforce in terms of skill pools and the types of skills that we have in the company. Sorry, just move on, check my notes. As well as all of those, the diversity of skill pool and talent, we also have diversity in terms of the usual gender, we have diversity in terms of life stage, and I'll come on and share some of the analysis we did on that, and many other attributes in our workforce. So how did we go about redesigning our reward and benefits package given that diversity of our workforce without overcomplicating coming up with something very difficult to administer and manage? So, our strategic intent. One of the things is that we do benchmark our pay every year, okay? So we do that, but as was mentioned in the previous presentation, benefits do move more slowly, so we tend to benchmark our benefits around every 5 years. And we decided this time to do a very comprehensive review and to really look at this holistically. We started with the cash elements and said, are we benchmarking the right companies? And are we targeting the right competitive position against those companies for the various parts of our business and sectors of our workforce? And mostly the answer to that question was yes, because we have a very global approach to that. We have very robust methodologies. We were sense checking that, and mostly that we were pretty good there. So what I'm going to focus on today is the benefit element of our whole reward and benefits package, because that's where it's more local, it's more country, and that's where we did make the most fundamental changes. A bit about the business imperative for this, because you could say, oh, well, it's just a review, it's every 5 years, what's the big deal? Well, actually, the oil price in 2017 was on average $54 a barrel. Years earlier, in 2017 was $54 a barrel. In 2014, it was $111 a barrel. Now, can you imagine in your businesses having your revenue halved? And that's what happened in the oil and gas sector. And you saw that in the North Sea with people stopping developments, and the oil industry really started to contract. Today, the oil price is around $70 a barrel. So it's a bit better, but it's still not up to the over $100 a barrel. So what this caused Shell to do was to critically review its cost base. Yeah, we needed to really think carefully about our spend and get our spending and our costs under control. So we wanted to ensure that we got value for money in everything we do. So from the outset, this review was not about adding, it was about checking that what we were spending was using the company's money wisely, that it was delivering value for both our employees and our business. Okay, so we wanted to, sorry, let me just flick over my notes. Yeah, so you can see on the slide the balancing act. So one of the things we were looking at, we want to attract the best available talent in the market to deliver the current and the future business success we need. Yeah, so this was ensuring that we have a very competitive offering, but balancing that against the cost challenges that I just mentioned. So it's around, again, value from spend and getting the most out of the money we spend. On the other hand, we wanted to introduce and think about flexibility and choice, but also balancing that against simplicity, yeah, and the use of technology to deliver a simpler offering. At the outset, we were sure we wanted to do a very thorough review, and we wanted to bring all of our stakeholders along with us. So we began an 18-month process of dialogue with key business leaders, with our employee networks, and with our HR delivery teams, with our business leaders, through our business leadership teams. So we held we wanted to ensure that we delivered what's in the heart of this thing here, this cycle here. So it's interesting on Tom's previous presentation, the employee at the centre. And for us, it was very much about employee engagement and equity. It was very much around delivering that, but also all of the other things in the orbit around that, you know, that we can deliver to meet the needs of the business, alignment with the market, legal compliance, our group policies and processes, and with all of that, ensuring we have something that's simple to administer and something that's simple to understand. So this process of listening, we as I said, had engagement forums. This is something quite unusual for the reward space to go out and talk to employees directly. We were worried about potentially raising expectations. So in this engagement, it was very much being open about there was no more money here. The agenda was around delivering a better value package. So in those forum meetings, it was very much around, if you had to make a choice between X and Y, what would your choice be? If you had to prioritize this list of things, what would your priorities be? We also looked at best practice in the external market. We benchmarked, and as I said, had very extensive dialogue with our business leadership teams and our HR leadership teams. And we looked at everything from an end-to-end perspective. So as well as looking at the policy, looking at the benefit design, we looked at actually how could it be administered and implemented. We analysed the take-up of benefits. So we looked at what is our take-up, yeah, and one example of a benefit that we looked at that had a low take-up, but high cost to administer. And actually, when we engaged with employee groups, we found that that it wasn't a highly valued benefit, and that was cycle to work, cycle to work scheme. So we actually took the decision to discontinue that. It wasn't delivering value. We looked at complaints, exception requests, error rates, and really analysed, what was working and what wasn't from a process perspective. We looked at the processing times, and we looked at our demographics. So as you can see on this slide here, we have early, mid, late career people in the workforce. So looking and understanding the expectations of that analysis. So let's move on to actually what did we deliver and what did we achieve. Well, we delivered a revised suite of employee benefits that was simpler to understand, in most cases improved, and at a lower cost to the company. We delivered a reduction in 9 weeks of work in our HR services organisation, and 18 weeks of work in other areas such as tax, policy, payroll. And you might think, well, how did you manage that? Yeah, so what I'm going to do is talk you through some examples, and we group these under 3 areas. So first of all, simplicity. So one example is that our previous healthcare arrangement, there was levels of cover that people could upgrade to. So you could have core level and several other levels of cover, and dental and all sorts of other things thrown in. What we did was, through moving to a trust-based arrangement, through careful and targeted procurement exercise, we we moved to a simple core level of cover that was better, a higher level of cover for everyone, and we took away choice. So we didn't have optionality, we had one better level of cover for everyone. It made it simpler, it made it easier to understand, and it made sure that it was really something that was valued by employees. Another example maybe is the employee, what we used to have something called loyalty awards, and these were long service awards. And when we did our focus groups, one of the feedbacks we got was that the older generation of the workforce, the longer serving people, really valued that. They really thought that was, a wonderful benefit. The younger workforce, part of the workforce, said, that's really strange, it's at odds with our performance culture. Why would you give somebody rewards for just staying for 30 years when we've got a high performance culture? What we did was we repositioned those loyalty awards, and and what was actually missing in the previous awards, so go back to, with the previous loyalty awards, they were very complex, so you'd have different levels of awards for different milestones. Sometimes you've got a brooch, sometimes you've got a dinner, sometimes you've got cash. Very complex to understand and administer. We moved to a very simple approach, and what was missing in that as well, was the fact that the actual recognition of that service was missing. What we changed was that the line manager would receive a prompt to celebrate that anniversary award. So would actually be prompted to tie balloons to the chair, make a bit of a fuss, do tea and cakes in the office, and really celebrate the anniversary. And we have a simple amount of cash, so a cash award for every decade. Very simple to administer and very well received. Yeah. If I move on to flexibility, annual leave is a good example where we had different amount of annual leave based on seniority. So that the longer people stayed in the company, they gathered more annual leave. People with a senior salary grade got more annual leave than people in a junior salary grade. And therefore, it was very complex to administer. And in addition to that, people could take out days leave for moving house, for getting married, and a whole load of different leave types. We completely simplified the offering, and we improved the annual leave entitlement for everyone in the company. So improved at one core level for everyone, and the option to buy and sell leave. Because one of the feedbacks we got in the engagement with employees was that time was really important. Time was actually just as important as money, and some people would sacrifice money for time. So we introduced the buying and selling leave option. Relevance. With the more younger workforce, we found the use of apps was really important. So one thing we brought in on board was a discount provider where people could get access to discounts using an app. And again, to help as part of our financial well-being, another strand to that was more modern and innovative. Also, an online doctor. So that had a benefit that people in London particularly, getting access to a doctor quickly was very difficult. And so an online doctor where people can get prescriptions and medical advice very quickly, a benefit to the business and a benefit to the employees. So that's an example of some of the things that we changed. So I'm just going to look back. You may wonder, how did we do that without increasing costs? Well, every benefit we reviewed, we costed out. And we costed out savings, and we costed out the extra costs. And through smart procurement, through rebalancing the spend, through improving some things and moving things of lower value and higher costs, we actually did deliver an improved package at a lower cost to the company. It also gave us the opportunity to communicate and engage with employees in a way we'd never done before on reward and benefits. So one thing we did was package up under 3 headings: wealth, health, and lifestyle. And we grouped things together. We held face-to-face engagement sessions in our core locations. We held webinars, and they were fronted by the country chair and business leaders. So those weren't fronted by HR, they were fronted by the business. And they were, we were able to actually go out and engage directly in a way we'd never done on the reward and benefits package. We also, for the first time, introduced total reward statements. So you can see here just an example for one of our total reward statements, because we felt it was really important to draw people's attention to the whole value of the package, and so people could see that it wasn't just about base pay, it wasn't just about bonus, but the cost and the value of the whole package. How are we going to measure our success? How are we going to measure whether this really worked? Well, early feedback from employee forums, we went back to the employee forums and actually asked, how has this landed? How has this landed with your constituents? You can see the scores on there, and the average score on how they felt about the benefit review outcomes was around 3.6%, 3.6 out of 5. You might say, well, that's not all that high, but this is an employee forum that's kind of consultative in its nature, so you're never going to get 5. So we were really quite pleased with that. You'll probably see the lower score on the right-hand side, which is about redundancy provisions. We did make some changes to our redundancy provision, which weren't quite so well received. But across the 3 main areas about how did we communicate the change, how did the change land, initial feedback was really good. And then feedback on the ground from employees was actually very positive. And in fact, I think people had feared the worst. People had feared we were going to do something terrible, and actually they were really pleased with the outcomes. We also reviewed take-up statistics, and we had a really good take-up on the things that we changed. So, in fact, 20% more of our employees engaged in the benefit choices in the recent cycle. We're going to monitor this going forward. We hold an annual employee survey, and there is a question on reward and benefits in that survey. We are hoping, after this work, that will improve, and we will know that later this year. And also we hope it will help to bring up the overall engagement index in our employee survey, because we very much believe that engaged employees drive better business performance. And this will hopefully, these efforts will help to contribute to that. We're also going to analyse our recruitment data and our attrition data to see whether it is actually pitched correctly to attract and retain the talent we need. So we will continue to monitor this going forward to ensure that the benefit outcomes deliver as we intended. Now, of course, I didn't do this all on my own. This is a picture of my team, and in fact, Alan and Eleanor are in the room here today with me, who are part of my team that delivered this. And it was a team effort. In fact, the people on the left-hand side of the picture are the team that's in HR services in Krakow, who are very much part of this review, because they are the people that on the ground are involved in supporting employees as we go through benefit choices, etc. So a big thank you to my team for delivering this. And I think I'm just under time to take some questions.
Excellent. Well done. Thank you very much, Sandra. So if we can get the Slido questions up, that you grab some water.
Yeah. My voice has gone very dry.
Let me have a look what's popular. So what is the strategy for cash in lieu where employees exceed lifetime and annual allowances? Oh, a nice difficult one. That's for you.
One. Somebody was probably on my table early when we were talking about this. So yes, indeed, I think the profile of our workforce in the UK is we have a number of more people who are impacted by annual allowance and lifetime allowance. We do offer a cash alternative for employees who have a salary level that's likely to tip them over the tapered annual allowance particularly. So we do offer that cash alternative. Now, what we have to be very careful about is that works very well on our DC plan, but we also have an open DB plan. And so the important thing is there that people get the right financial advice before they make some of these decisions, particularly on the DB plan side. So we do ensure that when people are making their choices about cash alternatives, that they do have, and we hold a number of workshops with Close Brothers who support us on our financial well-being strategy. And so when people are making their choices, they're making really informed and careful choices.
Great. And then I'm going to ask you one last question that's looking very popular. We've been told that choice and personalisation is the way to go with benefits. You've moved, I mean, you've mentioned a few, the holiday and healthcare, to a one-size-fits-all, and actually offering something better. So is perhaps all this choice about what personalisation and choice a bit of a red herring and adding complexity to reward and benefits?
So one of the things we did when we engaged with employees, asking where was choice important to them. And actually, you know, if you provide a good level of cover, actually, do you always need... So it's about where do you have choice and where don't you, and where does it add value? So I think one of the things we were careful of, we don't have a full flex spend program. And what we have is some flexibility, but we're very choiceful about where we have that flexibility. So our preference was where we could to simplify. One of the things we found was, even where we had that flexibility and choice, people weren't engaging with it. So when we actually, in our previous health plan, only a very small proportion of our employees were making those choices because they found it so complex. They didn't understand the different levels of cover. So actually, I think, you know, you take all of that complexity out, it's simpler to administer and understand, delivers better value. So I think it is around being careful about, there is some choice, but be careful about where you exercise it.
Very good, interesting lesson from today's session. I'm going to draw it to a close because we've gone over slightly. Thank you so much. Very interesting. Big thank you to Sandra.